Can you tell what's real and what's AI generated? In this video's description you'll find a link to a survey of sorts, featuring 50 images, and you've got to determine which were made by humans and which were made by AI. Be sure to record your answers as you go, because I just got to the end, submitted it, and never got told. The last 6 you have to do are especially scary because it then tells you to rate how confident you are about your answers, which made me introspectively question how sure I was about anything. I think now is a very good time to do this kind of test, because it's still at the stage where we can sometimes tell what's AI and what isn't, but it's only going to get harder with every passing year. And even now, I really struggled with this challenge. Now I get it. AI is a very controversial topic. A lot of people will literally hate me for simply making this video and for saying that it's hard to tell what's what anymore. If you're one of those people who feels confident you can still tell what's AI slop and what isn't, then you really should give this survey a go for yourself. I'm fine to admit that I found this very challenging. I expected it to be, but judging these artworks helped put into words a lot of doubts and questions I've not directly had to think about before. So yeah, if you're curious about it, then click off now, because I'm about to go through my answers. I only got 30 out of 50 correct. 25 would have been as good as randomly guessing every one of them, so I at least scored a bit better than that, but not as much better as I'd have liked, since it was just a few obvious examples which helped me get there, while with the rest, even though I had my reasons for choosing the answers that I did, clearly I didn't have a clue. Here's an obvious example of AI slop. You can just look at this image and know it's AI generated. It's just something about the lines that gives it away, even at a glance. Just kidding, this one's human made. This, on the other hand, is AI generated, and I genuinely could tell that by the lines and the bizarre nonsensical stairs leading to nowhere at the bottom. But does nonsensical necessarily always mean it's AI generated? How about this one? Imperfections with the reflections and weird architecture with lines running across it made me suspect that this was all AI generated. And I was correct, this is AI. This one maybe does have telltale artifacts like the weird circles patterns around the woman's head, and perhaps it's trying too hard to mimic human style to actually be real. But is this AI generated? Yes, it is. For some reason I immediately assumed that anything that looked like a 3D render was AI generated, which led to me getting this one wrong, and I stick by my guns when I say this looks AI generated because of the weird looking wing mirror blob and the seemingly incorrectly rendered reflections of the wheels. But no, this is a human-made image/render. I'm not too familiar with anime, and being the content that AI is most trained on, I just immediately throw my hands up and assume that any anime image must be AI, since it's likely perfected the art of drawing anime girls by now. But only one of these is AI generated. Can you spot which one it is? Yep, it's this one. I think it was a bit crafty to choose a human image that didn't have hands visible. It's almost like it was done deliberately to try and hide AI generated finger artifacts, which are a bit of a problem in this AI generated image here. And look at this. It does its best to look as AI generated as possible by having different styles and eras of clothing for different people in different bits of the image, and the low resolution makes all of the text on screen look like AI slop, but this is an actual human made picture from several hundred years ago. I'm embarrassed to admit that this one was very tough for me. I thought I saw AI slop in the middle of the image, and the fact that a lot of the lines leading out from the black circles had weird flicks on the end made me question whether those imperfections were proof of AI, or were indeed proof that they were from a human whose imperfections were part of this artwork's appeal. I imagined the artist being in the room with me, watching as I questioned these things, and how terrible I'd feel if I dismissed his artwork as being worthless AI slop, when, if you look at it, this single artwork contains so many separate, unique elements to it. You can even see the top of the design sagging slightly in the middle. This was one that I thought I'd have a better job of identifying if the resolution of it was slightly higher. But as it was, I said it was human made, and I was wrong because it's AI generated. Obviously. And this one, similar in style but also very different, is human made. Obviously. Now this one came down to the imperfections in the reflections for me. The way some boats have reflections and others don't, and how there are sometimes bright lines in the water which aren't reflected above, I would assume that this is the sort of detail that a human artist would be careful to get right, that AI might struggle more with. Plus the sky is so much more cartoony in style than the rest of this image, which makes it look almost like 2 different artworks in one. But it turns out that this one is actually human made, and one of the top rated artworks on DeviantArt, so I incorrectly marked this one as being AI slop. I'm sorry. I really struggle with abstract art like this at the best of times because I just don't appreciate it. I look at all these small gaps and imperfections and weird quirks and think it looks bad, but For an abstract artwork, it could be part of its appeal. Although this one turns out to be AI, so I was right to not like it. With some of the images, I admit I questioned whether AI would have generated artwork so primitive or basic in style. This one, for instance, I thought had to be human-made because only a human would have considered this to be artwork. And guess what? This one is proper human-made artwork, and the artist sold a similar piece for $8 million just the other year. So it's not just human-made, but it's valuable human-made. I love this one. AI simply couldn't imagine this as being artwork, could it? This is very clearly a 5-minute Microsoft Paint job. Only it isn't. You guessed it, it's human-made, but it's a painting from the 70s. Kind of ahead of its time. For a lot of these images, I had to resort to very primitive single metric tests like, do they have the correct number of fingers and toes, or does it have a correct painting pattern that I'd expect from an older artwork? In this case, it didn't help because this one happens to be AI generated. And with this one, something just seemed off about her face and the people in the background. In fact, the more I looked at this artwork, the more questions I had about it. What exactly is it that she's meant to be sitting on? Even the windscreen wiper mark on the window is sus. But this one turns out to be a 200-year-old human painting. At this point, I was really questioning everything I'd ever thought about artwork. Maybe we've secretly been AI generating content for decades. This one, clearly depicting lots of cut-out shapes of people, some with the wrong number of fingers, weird shapes and negative space examples here and there, is human-made. Sometimes there's so little going on in these images that I struggle to even make out details that would help me determine whether it's man-made or AI generated. This one is human-made, by the way. With this one, the signature gave it away. It seemed very human in its placement, in a way that made me appreciate the art more by trying to understand the reasoning behind the artist making it the way they did. And yes, this one actually is human-made. This one again came down to the signature. I thought this looked like an AI Slop kind of signature, but then when you think about it, signatures often look like nonsensical squiggles and shapes and patterns because humans want their signatures to look unique. Add to that the beautiful composition and consistent style of this painting in its entirety, and I incorrectly assumed this one was human-made, because it's actually just mindless AI slop. I was really torn with this one because a lot of it looks AI made, but it's such a beautiful composition and has such a nice use of colours. I thought maybe it could be human made, but no, it is AI slop. As you can imagine, it's hard not to start getting paranoid and to start second guessing everything at every turn. When going through these images, I try to stick to my first impression, because it doesn't do me any favours to try and ah about them. This here is AI generated. I didn't even take the time to count the fingers or to spot the wings of the dragon being vastly different sizes. There's actually a lot that gives this one away, but I can immediately tell it's AI at first glance simply from the colour palette and how aesthetically pleasing it is. Same with this one, it's obviously AI. But this one here gave me pause for thought, because it's trying its best to look like an AI image, and yet there's just something different about it. The use of colours and the consistency of all of it. So this was one of the few images of this style that I thought was human-made, and indeed it was. Thank you for validating my opinion. But is it really human-made? Yes, it is. But this is the problem. We're losing trust in anything. Established artists have some credibility, artists posting their design process do as well, but it's almost like the onus is now on the artist to prove that their creations are real, instead of on us to prove that they're fake. It's becoming a real shit show. I did at points question how even this survey knew which ones were real and which ones were fake, but it looks like they've done their research, sticking mostly to older artworks for the human examples, and for the ones that were made since the invention of AI tools, you can find a lot about the images online to prove that they are, at the very least, more than just instantly generated AI slop. And I'll level with you, most art that I see online I merely glance at before moving on. By having to judge them, I actually took the time to really appreciate the images. And it turns out I love tall pointy trees and tall pointy flags. It felt as though, through appreciation for these artworks, that I had formed a connection with the artists behind them, and it was validating to discover that I had correctly identified these sorts of images as being human-made. But then I also liked this one, and this one's just mindless AI slop, as is this one, and so is this one. Occasionally, simply by having a descriptive name, it was enough to think that a human had actually put some thought into them. Of the 20 pictures I guessed incorrectly, I was more likely to assume AI art was human than the other way around, which I think is better, but it's hardly a huge victory when I got so many wrong in the first place. My results and findings were completely in line with the blog post about these test results. My 60% success rate was average. People who claimed to hate AI Slop scored slightly better at 64%, and professional artists who hated AI boosted that success rate to 68%. I was amazed to see that a few people achieved an almost perfect identification rate. So maybe there are some people out there who can still tell the difference between AI and human in all but the most tricky of circumstances. But rather soberingly, people seem to prefer the AI-generated content, which might just be a product of the samples chosen for this test, but it's still upsetting, especially for artists out there. Maybe your experiences with this survey will be different. Maybe you'll correctly identify all 50 images without a problem, or maybe you'll incorrectly identify all 50 images and have a mental breakdown. But from this survey, I've discovered that there is no hard and fast way for me to tell what is AI generated anymore, because just like human-made art, the creations are so diverse in theme and in style that a telltale sign in one does not necessarily carry across to the others. I would say that AI has got very good at mimicking human-made designs. I do not consider all of these AI images to simply be mindless, worthless slop. And neither do actual art connoisseurs, given that an AI-generated artwork won a fine arts competition 3 years ago. And this was back when AI-generated artworks were much worse. To me, it's obvious that this was AI-generated. Now, we're obviously a lot more aware of the existence of AI-generated content these days, but that begs the question, does being able to spot AI-generated content make us less objective when it comes to rating said artwork? But then, in our defense, even AI-generated artworks have had a human behind the wheel to design the prompt in the first place, to discard all of the failed results and to pick the one they thought was most pleasing or convincing. But then, so what? Are we saying it's a hybrid of AI and human design? Are we saying that AI can be used as a tool to enable creations previously constrained within the minds of humans without the artistic skills to put them to paper? And is it really such a bad thing for humans such as those to be able to use AI to envision their creations? 3Clicks Philip recently used AI for a similar purpose. He made a video about logos in Counter-Strike and used AI to generate ones he could envision but not create himself, at least not without investing considerable time and effort. And the comments didn't like him doing this, accusing him of generating AI slop and for stealing jobs from artists, and he was even told he should become a professional logo designer if he wanted to make a video like that ever again. The problem is, his mistake wasn't that he used AI, it was that he declared it, openly and honestly and publicly, thinking that was the right thing to do, and this made him a very easy target. Other times he hasn't declared using AI and nobody's noticed. So this is the problem I have. If you attack people for declaring they're using AI, it's not going to stop them from using AI, it's merely going to stop them from declaring it. And I really think this is how AI is going to go down in the future. It doesn't matter if you've used AI so long as you've overseen it and have ensured that it doesn't look like AI slop. From my own experiences, I'd say it's pretty obvious that people can't tell what's AI and what isn't anymore. They hate the concept of using AI and what it means for human artists, and that's fine. Those are valid reasons that I can respect, and they should stick to criticising it for those reasons. But I think maybe it's time we stop trying to belittle AI artwork as merely being mindless AI slop, because while it might be that, it can still often win out against human-created artworks.